So you guys are going to have your first virtual quiz on Thursday. And just like in class, how we do quiz reviews, we're going to also have a quiz review right now. So your quiz is going to be on the area of a triangle. A couple days ago, or last week in class, we did area of a normal triangle, and then I had you guys doing the area using Heron's formula. Who can tell me what the difference between triangle 1 and triangle 2 is? In triangle 1, we have 7 inches and 4 inches. Those two numbers are the sides, and then we have the angle in the between those two sides. So 96 degrees is sitting between 7 and 4. Over here in triangle 2, we have absolutely no angles because the angles are on the inside. We only have the sides on the outside. So triangle 1 has 2 sides and 1 angle, and triangle 2 has 3 sides. Both of these triangles are going to need different formulas to find the area, because this triangle, the area, how we would solve this triangle would not work for that one, and vice versa. So when we use the normal triangle area, and when would we use Heron's formula? Normal triangle area is found when we have 2 sides and 1 angle. We have 2 sides and 1 angle, so we're going to go ahead and use 1/2 times side times the sine of that given angle. And like I told you guys, instead of using 1/2, we should use 0.5 in our calculators, just because when we use a half, you have to make sure you guys are putting parentheses around it. And I know that's something a lot of you guys end up forgetting to do, is putting those parentheses around. So to avoid that mistake, just use 0.5. We're going to use Heron's formula, that 2-part formula, when we have 3 sides. The first thing we got to find is our semi-perimeter, and that's our S. So what we're going to do is we're going to add up all 3 sides. So we have here side A plus side B plus side C. If I give you sides D, E, and F, instead of using A, B, C, now I just use D, E, F. We're going to still add them the same way, so you could still add D, E, and F all together. We're going to get a number, and then we're going to multiply that number by a half. Once again, instead of using a half, use 0.5. Once we get that number there, as I've seen in some of you guys when you're doing your homework, some of you are stopping at this point and telling me that this S is your angle area. That's only the semi-perimeter, so what you got to do now is take this S and plug it back down into here, into the actual area formula. And the area formula for Heron's formula is area is equal to the square root of S times S minus A times S minus B times S minus C. So what you're doing is you're taking the semi-perimeter minus side A times the semi-perimeter minus side B times the semi-perimeter minus side C. So let's try an example. So I know last week's on the trial run of the virtual lesson, I had given it one of these problems to you. So now I can usually go ahead and trick you guys into this. This right here is Ginger. Ginger is not my dog, and she's not my sister's dog. She's our neighbor's dog. She sort of thinks she lives at our house. She loves to come over. If we open the door, she'll just start running, runs right into our house, and she knows we'll give her milk bone when she comes over, so she kind of just likes to come over and hang out with us. Well, when I was making this lesson today, she decided today was a good time to run on over and lay on the couch looking like a crazy dog. So that's Ginger for you guys. So back to our trick problem. I'll give you guys something like this. So I gave you the triangle, so it's triangle A, B, and C, and I give you 3 sides, 16.1, 21, and 26, and an angle of 88 degrees. As a little reminder, angles are on the inside and our sides are on the outside. Sides are opposite their angle. So side A is opposite angle A, and side A is 26. Side B is opposite angle B. So side B is 16.1. And side C is opposite angle C. And opposite angle C is 21. So side C is 21. So to solve a problem like this, there's basically two ways you can do it. But what's a little easier for you guys, since we have that angle given to us, we could just go ahead and use the normal area triangle formula. So we would do a half times the side times the side times the sine of that given angle. Side A down here, it just kind of sit there and kind of look, like I tell you guys, it's kind of going to sit there and look a little pretty down there. It's not going to do anything. We're looking for these two sides directly next to that given angle. Why are we going to do this? Why aren't we going to use Heron's formula? You technically could go ahead and use Heron's formula, but it's a lot of unnecessary work. You don't need to do all that work when you could just take this side 16.1 and this side 21, multiply those two together, then multiply it by half, and then multiply it by sine of 88. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So I get 0.5, because I told you we're not going to use a half, times 16.1 times 21 times the sine of 88. What I like to go ahead and do next is I like to do 0.5 times 16.1, get an answer, and then multiply that by 21. And then we get 169.05, and you just kind of bring down that sine 88. Now from this step, you could put this all in your calculator at once, exactly like this. You would do 169.05, and you can either put times or you could just hit sine and then put 88, and you could close parentheses. You don't have to close the parentheses, up to you. And then we get, once we plug that all in our calculator, we get 168.95. I'll tell you guys where to round off, as long as we're pretty much within the same vicinity. If I told you guys to round this to the nearest tenth, the 9 would round up, so we would get a whole number. We'd get 169. I'll tell you guys on your test where to round up to. So let's review another problem. I give you this triangle over here. What do you have? So we have three sides. We have side A, side B, and side C. Remember, we first have to find S before we could go ahead and plug it into Heron's formula. That formula we just used is not going to work for this particular triangle because there's absolutely no angle inside here. So the first thing we got to do is find our S, which is our semi-perimeter. And to do that, we need to know what our sides are. So side A is 29, side B is 53, and side C is 41. So we go ahead and plug that into our 1/2 times A plus B plus C, and then I go ahead and do that. So instead of using a half, I use 0.5. So we do 0.5 times 21 plus 53 plus 41. Super important, I wouldn't put this in your calculator all at once like this, because sometimes if you guys forget to close parentheses, your calculator is going to have absolutely no clue what you're trying to get it to do. You'll know what you're trying to do. Your calculator is going to have absolutely no clue. So my suggestion to you is to add 29 plus 53 plus 41. Once we do that, we get 123. And now multiply that sum by a half. So once we do that, we get our S is equal to 61.5. And as a reminder, we're not done once we get this S. That's just our semi-perimeter. So now we can actually go ahead and plug it into Heron's formula. So when we go ahead and do that, wherever there's an S, we're going to put in 61.5. And then we just go ahead and match up where our sides are, where A is, where B is, and where C is. So we get 61.5 times 61.5 minus 29, 61.5 minus 53, 61.5 minus 41. What I do first is I go ahead and subtract these values. So when I do 61.5 minus 29, I get 32 and a half. 61.5 minus 53, I get 8 and a half. 61.4 minus 41, I get 20.5. My next step, and I just kind of carry down this 61 and a half. My next step is I multiply all of these together. So I do 61 and a half times 32 and a half times 8 and a half times 20 and a half. You're not distributing, you're not foiling this 61 and a half to each of these numbers. You're just straight up multiplying across. And then when I do that, we get this large number. We get 348282.1875. And then because the area, we have to take the square root. And once we do that, we get our area is equal to 590.2. When we are doing this, what's important that we do, we don't put the side, we don't do side minus our semi-perimeter. It's the semi-perimeter minus the side. Because if we do that, we're always going to get a negative number. And then once we get down to this step right here, you can't take the square root of a negative number, so your answer is completely thrown off. So it's always s minus a, s minus b, s minus c, and so on. Let's try this one over here. Which formula do you think we're going to use? We're going to use the normal area of a triangle. So we're going to use 1/2 times side times the sine of the given angle. Our area is going to be equal to 0.5 times 15 times 13.3 times the sine of 73. What I told you I like to do 15 times 13.3. Then I go ahead and multiply that by 0.5. And then I get 99.75. And I just kind of carry down this sine of 73. Now at this point, I put this all in my calculator, 99.75 sine 73. We go ahead and round to the nearest tenth, and we get 95.4. So in summary, when we have a triangle that looks like this, two sides, and an angle between those two sides, we are going to use this formula right here. 0.5 or 1/2 times side times the sine of that given angle. When we have this triangle right here with three sides, there's absolutely no angles in here. Don't go try to find an angle. I don't expect you to go try to find the angle. Use Heron's formula. So it's a two-part formula. Don't forget about that. Your first thing you got to find is that semi-perimeter. So you got to add up all the sides here and multiply it by 1/2. And then once we get that number, we go ahead and plug our semi-perimeter in wherever there's an S in here. And then we just plug in our sides. And if I go ahead and give you guys a trick problem, something that looks like this, where you have three sides and one angle, I recommend that you guys go ahead and use the normal area problem. The normal 0.5 times the side times 1/2 times side times the sine. Go ahead and use that. You get your answer a little bit quicker. So, study for your quiz tomorrow. You guys will do great. You'll be fine. I'll be here for any questions that you guys may have. Your quarterly packets are still due to me no later than Tuesday, March 24th. If I don't get it on time, if you hand it in late, 5 points come off for each of those days that your packet is late. So hand it in on time so you start off with a higher grade.